千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now. To be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process of the Tao. Previously, I noted the Chinese title for this particular chapter. So again, it's a title in 3 characters, where the first 2 characters are the title name. And the first character means no or without. The character in the middle, the second character, means hard or difficulty. And then the last character is simply chapter. So when you put it all together, you can see that the chapter name can be translated as without difficulty, or perhaps no difficulty. So both will be equally correct. It's sort of the ancient expression of our modern expression, hey, no problem. And the idea is that the people who study the Tao can live a life without difficulty. Now, when this concept is brought over into the West, sometimes it gets distorted just a little bit. People get the idea that they want to live life in an easy, effortless way. That's cool. They definitely have that part right. That's what we want, and that's what studying the Tao will get us. So the misconception, as I mentioned previously, is that sometimes people may think that the Tao means like taking the easy way out. So I oftentimes hear people say, when they study the Tao, that they can do by not doing, and therefore they basically come up with reasons why they should not fulfill their obligations, that they can do whatever they want, they can wander in whatever direction they wish, that it's all very carefree. So the authentic tradition of the Tao is actually not like that at all. As we have seen in the last couple of meetings, it's actually a very disciplined approach. Chapter 63 spells it out. It basically says that if you use these very specific methods in the Tao context and do things the way that Lao Tzu recommends, then you will have an easy life, just like the sages themselves. It isn't that they don't handle any work or that they never encounter any difficulties. Those things will continue to happen in life. It's just that in the Tao, they have identified the best way, the optimal way to handle that. And that is why I say that this is a very valuable chapter for us to talk about. The central idea, as you will see, will carry through into the next chapter as well, chapter 64. So let's get right back. Previously, we looked at 63, and then we proceeded to divide it up into 3 sections based on the repeating characters, based on the hidden structure that we can see, hidden poetic structure. We went through the first couple of sections. The first section it starts with an intriguing set of 3 lines of 3 characters each. And the context of that, the meaning of that, we definitely explored at length. It's talking about how the Tao is, and then in turn, how we should be, how we must be in order to emulate the Tao. So that's the way that we begin. Now, I want to point out that one of the major points that we talked about last time is line 5. So that's the end of the first section there. As you can see, line 5 says, respond to hatred with virtue. So that's one of the main points that Lao Tzu wanted to make. Like, how do you live life in an effortless way? Well, the first thing that you got to do is to respond to negative energy with your own positive energy. Then later on, he's also going to expand on that a little bit, and I'll point out where in the chapter he does, where he basically says it's a good idea to be positive. You don't want to overdo it though. You want to practice moderation. So you want to be positive, but also moderate. So that's going to be the first point. We'll talk about that in the recap real quick. Then in section 2 lays out the two primary ways of handling what seems to be tasks that are too big or too difficult for us in life. We all encounter that in every aspect of life, whether it's personal relationships or the career, the job, the work, the professional setting, or even social circles. We encounter stuff like that all the time. And Lao Tzu says, here's the best way to do it. So two main ideas in there that we talked about is handling difficult tasks through the simplest tasks. You see that in line 6, as well as line 8 and 9. So there's a reiteration there, taking up 3 lines. Then the other idea is whenever you get something big, you must break it up into smaller tasks. Divide and conquer is the idea. And you see that represented in line 7, as well as line 10 and line 11. So those are the 3 big ideas, and we ended up just getting into line 13, as you can see there with the arrow. And we're going to finish this discussion of the chapter by completing our discussion of all the lines that we didn't get a chance to talk about. So the recap on those 3 points that I just mentioned, the first one is responding to negativity with positive energy, and there's a skillful way to do it. So when we, as an example, receive negative feedback, blame, or criticism, there are specific things that we can do that can diffuse the situation. And when this is pointed out, you begin to see, when you observe the world around you, that many people don't do any of these. Instead, they will fight fire with fire. And that's usually a recipe for disaster. So here, I just have 5 points to talk about, what we can do instead when we're faced with that kind of negativity. That we always want to be courteous, as you can see there with the first bullet point. We want to clarify. We want to make sure we know what it's really about so that we can respond appropriately. And we want to say it back to the other person to make sure we understand what the complaint really is. This is also demonstrating that you are serious about resolving the issue and that you respect the other person for bringing it up. Then you want to solicit their suggestion. How do they see it? Typically, if someone doesn't like a situation, doesn't like the way things are, they at least have some ideas about how to make it better. These ideas may not be practical or realistic, but it's a good way to figure out where their head is at. And if they have unrealistic notions, it is best to find out so that when you offer your own suggestions, your own solution, you can set expectations. And they won't be, perhaps they won't be getting everything the way they would like it done, but they will know your reasoning for that. So these are practical ways to be very positive when someone is coming at you being very negative. So that's the recap for the first point that Lao Tzu is making about how to make your life easy. Fighting fire with fire will do the opposites. It will make your life much, much more difficult. So we want to go in the opposite direction. The second big point from Lao Tzu was about handling the big tasks in life. And basically, Lao Tzu says, you've got to do it a little bit at a time. Don't try to be a hero, tackle the big thing all at once. Take baby steps. A little bit at a time is totally fine. We're going to see this idea repeated over and over again in this chapter and the next one. And what I pointed out was that there are numerous benefits of focusing on the small when you're faced with a big challenge. The first one is that this is simple, so you can do this in every aspect of life. You can apply this to anything. And because you're picking and choosing something that is small, it is very easy to get yourself going. This is my personal solution to my procrastination. I used to procrastinate a lot, but when I learned this teaching from Lao Tzu, procrastination for me became a thing of the past. Not only is it easy to get going, but it's easy to keep going because you're constantly identifying the next easiest thing to do and then getting that out of the way. Before you know it, you've racked up a number of completed items, and it makes you feel great. As you're handling these small items that are relatively easy, you're also building confidence, you're building expertise on what to do. As you become more confident and experienced, you're able to handle the next one more easily. So overall, you get into a process that is actually fun. It is actually joyous, that you can get more out of it. You can get more enjoyment out of work than you would otherwise. And it is very true that when work gets closer to play, it becomes not like work, that you don't need to struggle, you don't need to strive. So this is definitely a great way to make life easy for yourself. So it goes back to the title, the chapter title, without difficulty. Yeah, you can do this specific thing to make things much easier. Then the third point that we also covered, similar and related to the last one, is that when you're faced with something that is very difficult, you must identify the easy stuff, that you must divide things up so that you are getting to the small, easy, quick things. You want to aim for the low-hanging fruits. You want to get the quick wins, quick victories. And the point that I made last time also is that how can you know that you've overcome procrastination? Well, really, in a practical sense, the only way you actually know is when you're doing something that you've been putting off for a long time and you continue doing it. And this is, for me, this is the reason why the method from Lao Tzu always works, no matter what. It's probably the best personal discovery that I've made studying the Tao Te Ching, and I want to make sure that it is shared with you with as much clarity as I can offer. So then we are now winding our way to the place where we were at last time, the slide where we ended up. The major point in that slide is that if you think about the yin and yang paradigm in the Tao, the complementary duality, we can apply that quite a bit to this right here, to life. So you can learn to observe the world from the lens of yin and yang and be able to identify and make use and leverage the situation to your own benefit, to understand a situation better, to get more clarity. And the moment you decide to get into that, you see all kinds of manifestations of this complementary duality between the big and the small. And we started out saying that, well, the sages focus on little things, small things. That's how they achieve big things. Grand endeavors, they're all built up from small things. And then we can also apply that to observations in life. Again, yin and yang, those who talk big, those who talk a lot, those who have big egos, they usually have little or no substance. And that's definitely something that I have found to be true in my professional life. Whenever I see people who make all kinds of claims, no exception, they're not able to deliver. Whereas the people who really have that ability, they tend to be rather quiet. So those who talk little turn out to possess great talents. We definitely have seen that. I definitely have seen that in my life. So the heroic ones, those who want to look good to everybody, those who take on the big tasks all at once, they end up with little or no success. And then the last example we talked about last time is that details matter, little things matter, little things make a big difference. We hear this expression all the time, and now you can see it as yet another manifestation of yin and yang. Little things make a big difference. And a product where all the little things are taken care of becomes big in terms of popularity. So this is the slide that we ended up last time, and this is a recap on that. It is definitely not the last we're going to talk about in regards to yin and yang. We're going to now apply that same idea to the realm of personal interactions when we talk about promises, kept and broken, and trust that is maintained or breached. So line 14 says, one who makes promises lightly must deserve little trust. So this goes back to what I was saying about, big talk, not deserving of a whole lot of trust. Big talk, little trust. That interplay of yin and yang. Same train of thought from the previous slide. Big promises, little results. Now, in order to be congruent with the Tao, we want to go in the opposite direction, that you want to make promises cautiously, only when you are absolutely certain that you can deliver, and you want to deliver more than what the other person is expecting. That is how, in business, one can delight a customer or perhaps a consulting client, is by not promising too much, but then deliver more than is expected. My favorite example that I like to use is delivery, package delivery. Whenever you get a projected date in the future, that ideally should be a promise that is kept, of course. And we see that if the date comes and goes without the package, people get upset. But if the projection in the future delivery date was made conservatively with this idea in mind, and then the package arrives early, everybody is happy. So it's all about setting expectations. Because of that, one clarifying thing that we learn in life is that big talk deserves little or no trust. And this can be applied to all the scams that we come across in life. It used to be relatively unusual for people to get scammed, but with the prevalence of emails, we're seeing schemes being pushed on people all the time, including ourselves. Scams, get rich schemes, phishing emails, etc. We've all seen that. Those phishing emails will be talking about, hey, here's something that's really greatly beneficial for you. and this can be really expanded to ridiculous heights, where someone can send you phishing email promising that with a little bit of your help, you can end up with millions and you'll be set for life. Now, I say that it's ridiculous, but people actually fall for that all the time. And that's why the scheme is continuing. When scammers find a particular scheme that becomes profitable for them, they just keep on doing it. So that is something that we can prevent for ourselves if we understand this particular teaching of the Tao. Always be wary of those things that sound too good to be true. Now, I want to move away from email scams or scams in general and just talk about everyday situations. So remember, when it comes to Tao, we always must apply the teaching to life, to practical everyday reality. So I want to cast this in experiences that probably we have all experienced ourselves or have seen other people go through. And that's why I have this slide here that talks about broken promises leading to lack of trust. In the Dao De Jing, it's that line, 轻诺 leading to 寡信. So I want to talk about this very common situation in life. Think about this time when you were disappointed about how something came out. Perhaps you asked someone to do something. Hey, as a favor to me, can you do XYZ? Or, hey, I really need your help. I need you to take care of ABC. Whatever the situation is, you've asked someone to do something, and at the time, you did not know that this person was not really trustworthy. And that person may indeed present a facade as being very capable and trustworthy, and therefore you approach that person. The response from this person appears to be very positive and reassuring. This person will say something like, oh, no problem. It's easy. It's a walk in the park. It's a piece of pie. It's no big deal. So then you assume that they're going to go about doing that particular thing that you requested, but then after that, you don't hear anything more. And this puts you in a bit of a dilemma because, in a social situation, we all kind of feel like if we are too pushy, we may end up getting the other person upset. So should I follow up with him on where things are going? And if I bring it up, he might say, don't worry, I got it, I got you. It's all going to be taken care of. Why are you asking? Why are you getting so nervous? It's no problem, like I told you. You might ask for some kind of concrete evidence that there's progress. And again, you're not sure if that will be seen as being nice. And especially if it's a personal favor, you're not actually paying someone to do something, then that makes it even more difficult, like in a social situation. And if you don't follow up with this person, the problem is you have no idea how far you are from the end result. And you're not sure if you should ask another person to handle it, to do this thing that needs to be done, because it could be seen as very rude. The first person might be offended. What? You already asked me to do it. What's the matter? Don't you trust me? Stuff like that. It's not easy. Then, finally, when it's past the time when it should be done, you finally find out that this person actually hasn't done it or can't do it. There's a lot of frustration to go around, and maybe there's some kind of apology. Oh, listen, I tried, but it just didn't work. I'm so sorry. Now, of course, to this other person, the thing that needed to get done is not as urgent as it is for you. And if you say, well, if you couldn't do it, why didn't you tell me sooner? Well, if you say that, you can expect even more excuses. They may point the finger at something else. Oh, believe me, I was all ready to get it done for you. And then this other thing happened. And then I got sick. And then this and that. So they don't think it's a big deal, but for you, it's a bigger deal. And they may end up blaming you as not understanding or not trusting them. So overall, you end up with poor results or no results. And in the sort of a post-mortem analysis, you have to ask, why did this happen? How did this happen? What is the Tao behind this whole scenario? What is the motivation among people? Why is it that they can or cannot do something? Why is it that they make promises they can't deliver on? Well, when you look deeper into it, you see that some people make promises lightly to be pleasing to others. They know that they can seem reassuring until they have to deliver. So for a while, they can be pleasing to others. They may have that personality, the people pleaser. They want to say yes. They don't want to say no. And frankly, we can all identify with that because probably everyone that's listening right now, there is the element of a people pleaser within you. It's always more of a resistance from yourself to say no to someone else. You would like to say yes because it seems to promote harmony and happiness. So you have more of a tendency to say yes. You would like to say yes, and sometimes it's a bad idea because it obligates you to deliver on something that you don't have the time or the ability to deliver. So you want to think about this situation, but also reflect it back on yourself. Am I the person who said that no problem, it's no big deal, and that I end up not doing it? Am I the bad guy, so to speak? And another possible reason beyond being a people pleaser is more egocentric, related to a manifestation of the ego, and that is some people want to project this image, I've got it because I can do anything, because I'm really capable. I have that ability. I've got the connection, I have the know-how. I'm the all-around good person who can get stuff done for you. I deliver results for you. They want to project that image, create that facade, even if it doesn't match the underlying reality. So then the end result is breach in integrity. The person who made that promise has broken it. Damage to relationship. There's now bad air. There's now negativity between two people. So again, be sure to also apply these, reflect these back to ourselves. Am I also being egocentric sometimes when I want to reassure other people about how capable I am? Well, I know that I've done that in the past. I know that I've let the ego get the better of me. So in light of what Lao Tzu is teaching us, I really had to take another look at what I had done before, the pattern I followed before, and then look into following a different path, the path of the Tao. I want to be someone who keeps his words in every aspect of life. Maybe it's at work, I promised to turn in a report or a memo or a project on time. I want to be conservative, make sure I can keep to that. What if I am making promises with my friends? I want to show up at a particular time. I want to give someone a gift. I want to get together with friends at a restaurant, let's say. I want to keep my words. I want to have that reputation as someone who is trustworthy. Same with family. Think about parents who promises things to kids without any intention of keeping that promise. Usually, perhaps the child is being a brat and you just want to quiet down the problematic child. So you say, well, hey, listen, if you behave, I will take you to the zoo. I will take you to Disneyland. But then if there's no follow through over a time, the child sees the pattern and therefore your words have less credibility. So it is important to keep faith with everyone, even kids. So let's move on. So Lao Tzu has more to say about the interplay of yin and yang. We then move into the interplay of ease and difficulty. So line 15 says, one who sees many easy tasks must encounter much difficulty. So I've isolated those characters there. I think everybody sees the repeating character. The repeating character means many or much. So a larger quantity or more of a quantity. Then we have characters, two other characters meaning easy and difficult. So this line easily describes those who overestimate themselves. You know, oh yeah, that's easy. It's easy for me. Then that ease transitions to difficulty. It leads to difficulty. So just like the previous slide that we saw, this will be the person. These are the people who start out thinking, no big deal, no problem. Even if they don't say it, making a promise to other people, this idea here applies even more widely than that. For instance, it applies to ourselves when we're about to handle a task. We may also be thinking to ourselves, no big deal, no problem, I can do this, I can handle this. But then the life pattern that Lao Tzu notices is that this attitude can lead you into unexpected complexities. This is when later on you say, well, who would have known, who could have known that it was so hard? Who could have known that it was so complex? And well, it's only because of the overestimating of oneself and underestimating of the challenge. And in a situation like that, when you have unexpected complexities and you attempt different solutions, you can, very common, you can generate unforeseen side effects. And so this is what leads to overpromise and underdelivery. And the commonality of this results in being overly positive. This is what I was talking about before, that you want to respond to negative energy with a positive? Absolutely, for sure. But you don't want to be overly positive. You don't want to go overboard on the yang energy of being positive. You want to be moderate. Think about the times you come across people who present themselves as experts but cannot deliver results. You will then not want to present yourself as an expert and then fail to deliver results. Those are the people that talk about things as easy and then end up with difficulty, especially in demonstrating an actual result. Conversely, the opposite is also true. Those who can actually do it, they actually have the ability, the talents, the aptitude, they understand the value of keeping quiet. So big talk, little results, seeing things as easy, many difficulties, that's contrary to the Tao. So let's talk about the flip side of the coin. What would be congruent to the Tao? What would be in keeping with the Tao? What would be the opposite? So we want to reverse course. We want to make it so we transition from difficulty to ease. What that means is that when you start out handling something, working on something, you want to always have the assumption that this may be quite a challenge. This may have hidden complexities or challenges that I am not aware of right now. So the other way, the opposite direction, to be contrary to the Tao is to stray far from the path. This being congruent to the Tao is in keeping with the path. Now, in my observation of the world and most people in it, I think that this is relatively uncommon, that people don't automatically think of tasks, projects, challenges as being very difficult. But I definitely have trained myself to do it the other way, to be more congruent to the Tao. I want to start out being cautious and reserved, which is the yin half of the yin and yang symbol. That makes it much more likely for me to end up with great success. And that success is the yang side of the equation. When you have a healthy respect for the difficulty of some tasks, you naturally invest the time to do the research to learn about the problem and plan. By the time you actually grapple with it, you find that the initial time investment has paid off handsomely. All that research, all that learning and planning, they're coming in handy. So the pieces of the puzzle seem to fall into place all by themselves. You want to do the research up front, and that leads to the solution appearing smooth and effortless. And overall, this will lead to the under-promise and over-delivery. And over-delivery, in this case, all I mean by that is to perform beyond expectations, deliver results beyond expectations. And this is actually the sage's secret for success. It's not a big secret at all. It's hiding in plain sight. And in the very next line, that's what Lao Tzu says as well. He says, this is what sages actually do. Line 16, therefore, sages regard things as difficult. They always have that assumption. This may not be as easy as it looks. And now you see the reason why. That perception will lead them to have a healthy respect and therefore learn about what exactly they must do, to research. What have other people done before? What's been a proven solution for this particular problem? I want to learn about that. I want to take advantage of the experience that other people have had. These are the kind of things that many people don't bother with. They don't bother asking those questions before trying to tackle something themselves. And that is why they fail. So for the sages, when facing an issue, never underestimate the problem. Always plan for contingencies. So this is what we talk about, plan A, plan B. What if this doesn't work like you thought it would? How else can you get around the problem? In the Tao Te Ching, one of the metaphors being used is that the sages are always treading carefully as if they are walking across a wintry river. That is, a river that's frozen over in wintertime because of the cold temperature, but you're not sure exactly how solid the ice covering is. And therefore, when you walk across the frozen river, you must pick and choose your steps with the greatest caution. You want to look ahead to see if the ice layer is maybe too thin, and you can see a little bit of what's below. In that case, you want to look around to see if there's a better path where the ice is more secure. So walking over frozen river, planting each step. That's proceeding cautiously, and that's a vivid visual imagery for depicting that mentality. This, of course, increases the likelihood of success. Now we see why the sages are the ones who can handle things and achieve tremendous results, sometimes without seeming to work a whole lot or lifting a finger. It's because they understand how the best way is, according to Lao Tzu, and it's true to life. So then we now get to the last line. Line 17 says, they never encounter difficulties all through life. So the sages never encounter difficulties all through life because they always regard things as difficult. Now that you've seen the explanation of how they approach a problem, the amount of preparation they do, it just seems to make all the sense in the world. Like, of course, that's how things ought to be. And I want to push a little bit further and say, of course, that's how I should be. Of course, that's how we should also approach life. So let me isolate the last two characters there to make that point. So the two characters there are the ones that say no difficulty. And this is, I think this is familiar to everyone now because you noted that when we talked about the name for the chapter title, it is exactly that, the without difficulty chapter, or if you prefer, the no difficulty chapter. If you want, think of it as the no problem chapter. But here, the lack of difficulty or problems is not ignoring those problems or difficulty. Rather, it's that disciplined way of approaching an issue, a problem, a task, a project. So to make it easy to handle, easy to dispose of. And we can sum it up like this. Sages perceive difficulty and end up with no difficulty. Now you can see, without the explanations that we just went through, you may think that it's a paradox. But with the explanation, you can see it's just common sense. It's just practical reality. It's just a very down-to-earth, realistic, pragmatic way to live life. So now let's look at the final line as a whole. So they never encountering difficulties all through life. And I want to just emphasize that the exact same principle works in all aspects of life. And I want to encourage everyone, all of us, myself included, to apply this idea as broadly as possible. That at home, there's going to be problems that you're going to have to handle. So keep the words of Lao Tzu in mind. At the office, for sure, there's going to be challenges. This will really come in handy. It's definitely coming handy for me. In the community, when you're dealing with other people, your neighbors, the people in your community, there's going to be problems and challenges as well. And this idea can serve you very well. It can also serve you in your various social circles. So as I mentioned, I want to summarize everything in a graphical way, something that we can easily see, easily grasp in one glance, in a visual way. So here's how that slide looks. The Tao in life. In the center of the slide, I've got this abstract square, human beings. What I'm going to do is that I want to divide it up into two halves. Those who don't understand the Tao and those who do. Now, human beings is right in the middle of the slide, so there seems to be sort of a symmetry, those who do understand the Tao and those who do not. In reality, I have to note that it's very, very much not symmetrical. That is, the people who don't know the Tao or have never heard of the Tao far outnumber those who do. Let's explore what they are like. So to the left side of it, I have unaware of the Tao, and therefore their actions are contrary to the Tao. What are they like? So first of all, make many promises lightly and frequently. So these are the people who are untrustworthy. I do actually see quite a few of them. And then the result of those many promises is that they break those promises, they fail to deliver, and therefore lose trust. That's definitely contrary to the Tao. So the description from Lao Tzu about that is that those who make promises lightly deserve little trust. Then the other thing about them is on the lower left-hand corner. People tend to overestimate their own abilities and underestimate the challenge. Now, this, of course, is not a recipe for success. It usually leads to complications, and indeed, not just one complication, but a whole series, complication after complication, difficulty after difficulty, challenge after challenge, all because you underestimate the challenge. You did not do the upfront work in preparation for that. You see or assume that the problem must be easy, and then you encounter much difficulty. And that's what Lao Tzu says, that those who see many easy tasks must encounter much difficulty. So that's I would say, the majority of human beings that tend to follow that pattern in life. How do we be different? How do we do it better? So we want to, first of all, be the ones that understand the Tao, and we also want to be the ones to apply the Tao. So I think, the difference between the two is becoming easy to see, that this will first lead to under-promise. Never try to do too much. That is, you want to, whatever guarantees or promises you make needs to come from a very conservative estimate, needs to come from high certainty. And this leads to over-deliver, performing beyond expectations. People are happy that you told them something was going to be done in 2 weeks. You managed to get it done in a week and a half. That's a good thing. So Lao Tzu says this is what the sages do. They never tackle the big things, and that's how they can achieve the big things in life. So then the other part, you can see that the top half of this slide is basically lining up the people who don't know the Tao and the people who do, and pointing out the difference among them. And then the bottom half is going to be similar, sort of like a mirror image of one another. Those who understand the Tao and apply the Tao, we assume everything has its own unique challenges. Then, if you think about life, that's actually quite true. No matter what it is that we come across, everything's got its own unique set of challenges. And to those who say, well, some things are easy, so that's not always true. Okay, but think about this, consider this. If I overestimate the challenge and underestimate my abilities, so it's actually quite easy, then I'm able to get it done very quickly. And that's a good outcome. So what Lao Tzu is teaching us actually works. And as I said, relatively few people are on the right side, and we want to be the ones that emulate the sages, that we also don't want to see things as easy, we want to see them as hard. And the result of this is the last part of this graph, able to complete difficult tasks with ease. And when this is explained by Lao Tzu, he says the sages, that's exactly what he says. The sages perceive the difficulty, and therefore they have no difficulty all through life. And that's the recipe for a life of effortless ease. Comes from discipline. And that is the graphical summary of all the stuff that we have talked about. I think in one slide, it's actually depicting the Tao. So I would urge everyone to keep this in mind. When it's visual, it's easy to keep it as an image in your mind to call upon when you're actually faced with a situation. Now, I want to get to the paraphrase for 63. Here, we want to demonstrate that now that we have gone through the whole chapter and explained exactly what it means and how to use it in life, how to apply it, now we want to prove that we understand completely by being able to say what Lao Tzu says in our own words, in modern language. The first part, this used to be cryptic for a lot of people. You know, what is acting without action? What is managing without meddling? Taste without tasting? I mean, these all sound like the Tao paradox, some sort of a Zen paradox. But now that we've gone through these lines carefully and discovered the meaning, the many layers of meaning that they pertain to, we can say it in a much more easily comprehensible way. To live in the Tao is to live without attachments, taking actions without overdoing anything, managing matters without interfering with others, savoring the flavor of life without losing oneself in the process. Whether the matter is big or small, to many or a few, we are detached from having to get even with anyone. So we respond in a positive way even when others direct negativity at us. And this is what I was pointing to previously. When it comes to negative feedback, criticism, blame, we can always respond in a positive way. Then, section 2, this is the one that we talked about, where Lao Tzu is providing his own recipe for success. And it's the same recipe that is used by all the great Tao sages throughout history. We are also detached from the egocentric need to appear heroic. Rather than to attempt a difficult feat, we can start with something simple. Rather than to create something big, we can start with something small. This makes practical sense because even the most difficult task can be broken down into easier steps. And even the grandest achievements must be composed of smaller details. With the easy and small tasks, we get going quickly, accumulate experience, build momentum, and enjoy the process. To me, that last part of it is the most important. How do you enjoy life? We all have to do work. Nobody enjoys work, right? Well, if you follow the Tao, you can come to enjoy any kind of work as much as it can be enjoyed. Then let's tackle the last section. This is where Lao Tzu brings it home to talk about the sages. How are the sages as they live through life, accomplishing things that are difficult, getting things done that are huge? Well, here's the paraphrase. This approach is in accordance with the Tao. By focusing on the small, sages end up accomplishing great things. They apply the same principle consistently, so they never promise anything lightly and set unrealistic expectations. They know people who underestimate the effort often encounter numerous difficulties. They learn from this and take the opposite approach. They prepare for potentially difficult tasks and end up completing it with less effort. This is their secret for living the easy life. So everyone, I hope that this will also be your secret. It can be an open secret for you to live your own easy life. Lastly, we have the full circle that we should also get through. This is where we look at the very last part of the chapter and we link it to the beginning of the chapter, forming a full circle, and oftentimes uncover additional hidden meaning. So in this case, in the very last part, Lao Tzu says the sages never encounter difficulties, meaning they can always resolve difficulties. They live the easy life. When we link this back to the beginning, we see the three primary concepts: to be without excessive attachments, interference, or involvement. Involvement there specifically pertains to the thrills of the material world, to refrain from excessive involvement with the thrills of the material world. That's the quote unquote, the strong flavor of life. So then linking it back, we see the full circle. Lao Tzu is basically telling us how to live a life of effortless ease and smooth grace is by doing it without attachments, to let go of excess, to live in moderation. So moderation stands revealed as the key to this whole idea of act without action. It's not talking about non-action, like not doing anything, and just, be the couch potato. Instead, it's about acting without overly attached action. So the way of the sages, now you know what the way of the sages has to be. It's got to be a very specific way to handle challenges in life. So specifically, the sages never tackle big things all at once. One step at a time to accomplish big things. And think about how useful this is, one step at a time. And as you're interacting with other people, one problem at a time, one thought at a time. If you veer from that, you quickly get into confusion when different thoughts are vying for attention in your mind. One question at a time. Everybody speaking all at once, that's chaos, that's confusion. Everybody taking turns, things are much more orderly. So never tackle big things all at once. Then, the sages never trust the quick promise. This is what we talk about, how those who make promises lightly deserve little trust, because those quick promises get broken even more quickly than they're made. Then, sages never regard anything as easy. There may oftentimes be unexpected complexities. So always assume there are unknown difficulties. Nobody knows everything about everything at the outset. It's a process of discovery. So always assume that there's going to be more that you'll discover along the way. Lastly, and this is the main point of the entire chapter 63, and that is, enjoy the effortless life. If you're able to do the first three items there, like the sages do, you can enjoy the effortless life. The Tao guarantees it. The Tao guarantees everything will go smoothly for you, and ultimately, that's what we want. So our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us all travel safely so we can meet again. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.